Private Harry Scott's jaw drops as the strikingly beautiful Klingon female explains their peculiar greeting ritual. He blinks rapidly, certain he's misheard the translator's words. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" Harry asks, his voice cracking slightly. Aurora, the Klingon leader with piercing eyes and a ridged forehead, steps closer. Her powerful presence makes Harry acutely aware of the alien world around him. The red-tinged sky of Kronos, the looming architecture of the spaceport, and the palpable tension in the air. "It is our custom," Aurora states firmly through the translator. "All human diplomats must touch the breasts of Klingon females to establish peaceful relations. This is non-negotiable." Harry's mind reels. He glances at his fellow soldiers, seeing his own confusion mirrored in their faces. This wasn't covered in the pre-mission briefing. He turns to Captain Johnson, his superior officer, hoping for guidance. Johnson's face is a mask of barely contained shock. After a moment of hesitation, he leans in close to Harry. "We can't risk an interstellar incident," he whispers urgently. "Follow their customs, no matter how unusual." Heart pounding, Harry faces Aurora again. He raises his hand slowly, acutely aware of the dozens of eyes watching his every move. The Klingon females stand proudly, chins raised, clearly expecting compliance. Just as Harry's fingertips are about to make contact with Aurora's chest, alarms blare across the landing pad. The harsh sound cuts through the tense silence, startling both humans and Klingons alike. A male Klingon bursts onto the scene, his face contorted with rage. "Stop this deception!" he roars, his words translated in Harry's earpiece. "This is no true custom of our people." Chaos erupts. Klingon security forces materialize, weapons drawn. The human soldiers reach for their own arms, unsure who to trust or what's truly happening. In the confusion, Harry acts on instinct. He grabs Aurora's arm, pulling her close. "What's going on?" he demands, searching her alien features for answers. Aurora's eyes lock onto his, a mix of defiance and something else. Respect, perhaps? "We are not what we seem," she hisses. "A faction of Klingon females seeks to overthrow our male-dominated society. We hope to use you humans as pawns in our plan." The revelation hits Harry like a physical blow. He releases Aurora's arm, mind racing to process this new information. The diplomatic mission, already teetering on the edge of disaster, has just become infinitely more complicated. Overhead, the whine of engines cuts through the cacophony. Harry looks up to see Klingon warships descending through the blood-red sky. The male Klingons are shouting accusations, branding the humans as conspirators in this attempted coup. In mere moments, what should have been a straightforward diplomatic encounter has spiraled into a potential spark for interstellar war. Harry finds himself at the center of a maelstrom, caught between duty to his mission and the unexpected connection he feels with Aurora. As Captain Johnson barks orders to retreat to their ship, Harry hesitates. The fate of human-Klingon relations hangs in the balance. Does he follow orders and potentially leave this powder keg to explode? Or does he stay, risking everything to unravel the complex political web he's stumbled into? One thing is certain. Nothing in his training prepared him for alien females demanding breast touches or being thrust into the middle of an extraterrestrial civil war. As chaos reigns around him, Harry Scott must make a decision that could alter the course of galactic history. Harry's mind raced as he watched his fellow soldiers reluctantly retreat to their ship. The cacophony of alarms and shouting Klingons faded into the background as he locked eyes with Aurora once more. In that moment, he made his decision. "I'm staying," he said firmly, his voice barely audible over the chaos. Aurora's eyes widened in surprise, but she quickly regained her composure. "Follow me," she hissed, grabbing his arm and pulling him away from the landing pad. They sprinted through the labyrinthine streets of the Klingon capital, the red sky casting an eerie glow on the angular architecture. Harry's heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline coursing through his veins as they narrowly avoided patrolling guards. "We need to get underground," Aurora explained between breaths. She led him to a nondescript building and pressed a hidden panel. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a dark passageway. As they descended into the tunnel network, Harry's eyes struggled to adjust to the dim lighting. The air grew thick and musty, the walls rough and damp against his fingertips. Aurora moved with practiced ease, navigating the twisting corridors without hesitation. "Tell me everything," Harry demanded as they hurried through the underground maze. "What's really going on here?" Aurora's voice was low and intense as she explained. "We are the Sisterhood of Katara. For too long, Klingon females have been treated as second-class citizens, denied positions of power and influence. We seek to change that." They paused at an intersection, pressing themselves against the wall as a group of male Klingons passed by on a parallel tunnel. Harry held his breath, acutely aware of how exposed they were. Once the danger had passed, they continued their journey. Aurora's words painted a picture of a society divided, of generations of women yearning for equality and respect. Harry listened intently, his perspective on Klingon culture shifting with each revelation. After what felt like hours of tense navigation through the tunnels, they arrived at a heavily fortified door. Aurora placed her hand on a scanner, and the massive barrier slid open with a hiss. They stepped into a cavernous chamber, bustling with activity. Klingon women of all ages moved purposefully about, some engaged in combat training, others hunched over computer terminals. The air crackled with energy and purpose. An imposing figure approached them, her scarred face a testament to battles fought and won. "I am Kalara," she announced, her voice carrying the weight of command. "You must be the human who chose to stay." Harry straightened his posture, meeting Kalara's intense gaze. "Private Harry Scott, ma'am. I want to understand what's happening here." Kalara nodded approvingly. "You have courage, human. Come, there is much to discuss." She led them to a secluded area where holographic displays flickered to life. Kalara's expression darkened as she began to speak. "The Klingon males are developing a biological weapon," she explained, her voice tight with anger. "One designed to sterilize all Klingon females. They seek to ensure their dominance for generations to come." Harry's stomach churned at the implications. "That's monstrous," he managed to say. Kalara's eyes blazed with drive. "We need your help, Harry Scott. Your human perspective and training could be invaluable in our mission to infiltrate the research facility and stop this atrocity." Harry glanced at Aurora, who nodded encouragingly. He took a deep breath, weighing the enormity of what he was about to commit to. "I'll do it," he said firmly. "What's the plan?" Over the next few days, Harry immersed himself in preparation for the mission. He trained tirelessly with Aurora, learning Klingon combat techniques and struggling to master the unwieldy batleth. The traditional Klingon sword felt awkward in his hands at first, but Aurora was a patient teacher. "You must feel the weapon as an extension of yourself," she instructed, demonstrating a complex series of movements. Her lithe form moved with grace and power, and Harry found himself mesmerized. In turn, he shared human tactical strategies, discussing ways to adapt them to their current situation. As they worked closely together, Harry became acutely aware of a growing connection between them. Their eyes would linger on each other a moment too long, their hands brushing together during combat training, sending shivers down his spine. But there was no time to explore these feelings. The urgency of their mission loomed large, especially as news filtered in from the surface. Chancellor Koth had declared a planet-wide manhunt for Harry and the Sisterhood members. Worse still, transmissions to Earth threatened war if Harry wasn't surrendered immediately. As the day of the infiltration drew near, tension in the underground base reached a fever pitch. Harry and Aurora pored over schematics of the research facility, memorizing every detail. "The security will be unlike anything you've faced before," Kalara warned during their final briefing. "But if you succeed, you will have saved our entire species from a fate worse than death." On the eve of the mission, Harry found Aurora alone in the training area, her face etched with worry. He approached her quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We can do this," he said softly. "Together." Aurora turned to face him, her eyes searching his. For a moment, the weight of their task seemed to lift, replaced by the intensity of their unspoken connection. But the moment passed quickly. They had a job to do, and failure was not an option. As they made their final preparations, Harry couldn't shake the feeling that whatever happened next would change the course of not just his life, but potentially that of two entire species. With grit in their hearts and the fate of Klingon females hanging in the balance, Harry and Aurora prepared to embark on their perilous mission. The research facility awaited, its secrets and dangers yet unknown. The weight of their impending mission hung heavy in the air as Harry and Aurora made their final preparations. The underground base hummed with nervous energy, Klingon women moving with purpose and purpose. Harry checked his equipment one last time, his mind racing with the enormity of what they were about to attempt. As the first rays of Kronos' red sun began to peek through the planet's atmosphere, Harry and Aurora donned their protective gear. The suits were unlike anything Harry had ever worn before, a seamless blend of Klingon and human technology designed to mask their biosignatures. "Remember," Aurora said, her voice muffled slightly by her helmet, "we move quietly and quickly. The maintenance tunnels are our best chance of reaching the facility undetected." Harry nodded, swallowing hard as they approached the hidden exit. With a final glance at the bustling base behind them, they slipped into the shadows of the Klingon capital. The tunnels were a maze of twisting passages, the air thick with the scent of oil and machinery. Aurora moved with confident precision, her steps sure and silent. Harry followed close behind, marveling at her ability to navigate the complex network. As they neared the outskirts of the research facility, Aurora held up a hand, signaling Harry to stop. Ahead, a heavily fortified security checkpoint loomed, dripping with sensors and armed guards. "This is where it gets tricky," Aurora whispered, her eyes narrowing as she assessed the defenses. To Harry's surprise, she produced a small device from a hidden compartment in her suit. Her fingers flew over its surface, inputting a rapid series of commands. The checkpoint's control panel flickered for a moment, then went dark. "Klingon systems have always underestimated female hackers," Aurora said with a hint of pride. "Let's move." They slipped past the disabled checkpoint, the unconscious guards never stirring. As they penetrated deeper into the facility, the sterile corridors seemed to close in around them. Harry's heart pounded in his chest, every shadow potentially concealing an enemy. Suddenly, Aurora pulled Harry into an alcove. Two Klingon scientists walked past, deep in conversation. "The biological agent is nearly ready," one said, his voice low and excited. "Soon we will ensure the purity of our bloodlines for generations to come." Harry felt a wave of revulsion wash over him. The casual way they discussed the sterilization of an entire gender chilled him to the bone. Aurora's grip on his arm tightened, her own anger palpable. As the scientists moved on, Harry and Aurora continued their search. They found the main laboratory, its doors heavily reinforced. Once again, Aurora's hacking skills proved invaluable, granting them access to the heart of the weapon's development. Inside, banks of computers hummed alongside vats of sickly green liquid. Harry's stomach churned as he realized the enormity of what they were facing. They worked quickly, downloading data and collecting samples of the biological agent. Just as they were about to leave, a piercing alarm cut through the air. Aurora cursed in Klingon, her eyes wide with panic. "They've detected us," she shouted. "We need to move now." The sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Harry's training kicked in, muscle memory taking over as he readied himself for combat. The first wave of Klingon guards burst through the door, batleths glinting in the harsh laboratory lights. Harry's human combat techniques caught the Klingons off guard. He ducked and weaved, using their size and aggression against them. Beside him, Aurora was a blur of motion, her knowledge of Klingon physiology allowing her to target weak points with deadly precision. As they fought their way through the facility, Harry found himself marveling at how well they worked together. It was as if they could anticipate each other's moves, covering vulnerabilities and creating openings. In a heart-stopping moment, a massive Klingon warrior brought his batleth down towards Aurora's exposed back. Without thinking, Harry threw himself forward, deflecting the blow with his own weapon. The force of the impact sent shockwaves up his arm, but Aurora was safe. Their eyes met for a brief second, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. There was no time for words as they pressed on, alarms blaring and reinforcements flooding the corridors. "This way," Aurora shouted, gesturing towards a narrow opening in the wall. "It's a waste disposal chute. It's our only chance." Without hesitation, Harry followed her into the dark, cylindrical tunnel. They slid downwards at a sickening speed, emerging with a splash into a vast underground reservoir. The water was thick and foul-smelling, but it was their lifeline. They swam desperately, their protective gear weighing them down. Harry could hear the shouts of pursuing Klingons echoing above them. His lungs burned as they finally reached a maintenance hatch, hauling themselves out of the fetid water and into a service tunnel. As they caught their breath, Harry became acutely aware of Aurora's proximity. Her suit clung to her form, and despite the danger, he found himself drawn to her strength and willpower. The air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken tension, but there was no time to dwell on it. They made their way back to the Sisterhood's base, battered but alive. Kalara greeted them with a mixture of relief and urgency, her eyes widening as they presented their findings. "This confirms our worst fears," she said gravely, examining the data. "We must act quickly to prevent this atrocity." As the Sisterhood began formulating their next move, a planet-wide broadcast interrupted their planning. Chancellor Koth's face filled the screens, his expression thunderous. "Citizens of the Klingon Empire," he boomed, "we face a grave threat. Human spies and misguided females seek to undermine our very way of life. I declare martial law across Kronos, effective immediately." Harry's blood ran cold as Koth continued. "To the human known as Harry Scott, surrender yourself within 24 hours, or watch as your fellow diplomats pay the price for your interference." The gravity of the situation hit Harry like a physical blow. He had known the risks when he chose to stay, but now the consequences of his actions were painfully clear. Lives hung in the balance, not just those of the Klingon females, but his own people as well. As the broadcast ended, Harry felt the weight of every eye in the room upon him. The choice before him seemed impossible: betray the cause he had come to believe in, or potentially spark an interstellar war. He looked to Aurora, seeking guidance or reassurance, only to find her own face etched with conflict. Kalara's voice cut through the tense silence. "We have no time to waste," she declared. "I have a plan, but it will require courage beyond measure. We must strike at the heart of Klingon power itself." As Kalara began to outline her daring strategy, Harry steeled himself for what was to come. Whatever the outcome, he knew that the next 24 hours would change the course of history, for humans, Klingons, and the entire galaxy. Harry's mind raced as Kalara outlined her daring strategy. The plan to strike at the heart of Klingon power was audacious, bordering on suicidal. Yet as he looked around at the determined faces of the Sisterhood, he knew it was their only chance. "We have little time," Kalara said, her voice steely with persistence. "Harry, Aurora, you two will be crucial to our success. Your training must intensify immediately." The next hours blurred into a grueling regimen of combat drills and tactical simulations. Harry felt his muscles burn as he sparred with Aurora, their movements becoming increasingly fluid and synchronized. They pushed each other to their limits, honing their hybrid fighting style that blended human agility with Klingon strength. During a particularly intense session, Harry executed a complex maneuver, attempting to disarm Aurora. His foot slipped, sending them both tumbling to the mat. He found himself pinning her, their faces inches apart. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Harry was acutely aware of Aurora's rapid breathing, the warmth of her body beneath him. Their eyes locked, and the tension that had been building between them finally ignited. Without thinking, Harry leaned in, his lips meeting Aurora's in a passionate kiss. She responded with equal fervor, her hands tangling in his hair. For a brief, blissful moment, they forgot about the looming danger, lost in each other's embrace. Reality came crashing back as quickly as it had faded. They broke apart, both breathing heavily. Aurora's eyes were wide with a mixture of desire and concern. "Harry," she said softly, "we can't—" "I know," he replied, getting to his feet and offering her a hand up. "The mission has to come first." They stood for a moment, the unspoken feelings hanging heavy between them. Finally, Aurora nodded, her expression becoming focused once more. "Let's run the disarming sequence again." Their training continued with renewed intensity, both of them channeling their conflicting emotions into their preparations. Kalara, ever observant, noticed the shift in their dynamic. She approached them as they were reviewing schematics of the High Council building. I have a task for you both, she said, her tone grave. We need more intelligence on the council chamber's defenses. There's a military outpost on the outskirts of the capital that may have the information we need. Harry and Aurora exchanged glances, understanding the importance of the mission. Kalara continued, Your skills complement each other perfectly. Infiltrate the outpost, gather what we need, and return without detection. As night fell over Kronos, Harry and Aurora made their way through the winding streets of the capital. They moved like shadows, their suits masking their biosignatures from Klingon scanners. The military outpost loomed before them, a fortress of angular metal and pulsing energy fields. Aurora produced her hacking device, her fingers dancing over its surface. The perimeter defenses are more sophisticated than I expected, she whispered. Give me a moment. Harry kept watch, his senses on high alert. After what felt like an eternity, Aurora gave a soft exclamation of triumph. We're in. Follow me closely. They slipped into the outpost, navigating its twisting corridors with practiced stealth. Aurora led them to a secured terminal, her expertise allowing her to bypass its encryption in record time. As data flowed across the screen, Harry kept guard, his hand resting on his concealed weapon. Harry, look at this, Aurora said urgently. He moved to her side, his eyes widening as he took in the detailed schematics of the High Council chambers. Secret passages, hidden security measures, and escape routes were laid bare before them. As Aurora downloaded the information, Harry's enhanced hearing picked up approaching footsteps. He signaled silently, and they quickly took cover behind a row of storage containers. Two high-ranking Klingon officers entered the room, engrossed in conversation. Chancellor Koth is accelerating the timeline, one said, his voice low and urgent. The biological weapon will be deployed within 48 hours, starting with the most rebellious female populations. Harry felt Aurora stiffen beside him, her hand clenching into a fist. He placed a steadying hand on her arm, silently urging her to remain still. The officers moved on, leaving Harry and Aurora alone once more. They shared a look of dogged purpose. We need to get this information back to Kalara immediately, Aurora said. Their return journey was tense, both of them acutely aware of the ticking clock. As they entered the Sisterhood's base, they were met by Kalara's anxious gaze. What did you find? She demanded. Harry and Aurora quickly relayed their discoveries, including the overheard conversation about the weapon's imminent deployment. Kalara's face hardened as she absorbed the information. We have no choice, she said, her voice ringing with authority. We must strike now, before Koth can unleash this abomination upon our people. The base erupted into a flurry of activity as Kalara outlined their assault plan. She divided their forces into 3 teams, each with a crucial role to play. Harry found himself assigned to lead the team that would secure the council chambers, while Aurora would head the group responsible for disabling the building's defenses. As the final preparations were made, Harry sought out Aurora. They found a quiet corner amidst the chaos, their eyes meeting with a mixture of fear and dedication. Aurora, Harry began, but she pressed a finger to his lips. I know, she said softly, but we can't afford distractions now. Whatever happens, whatever we feel, it must wait until our people are safe. Harry nodded, understanding the weight of their responsibility. Aurora took his hand, guiding it to her chest. He felt the rapid beating of her heart beneath his palm. Vih kel kra, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Harry recognized the words of the ancient Klingon warrior's oath. Our fates are bound, in victory or death. Vih kel kra, Harry repeated, the foreign words feeling right on his tongue. As the Sisterhood prepared to launch their assault, Harry checked his equipment one last time. The weight of his modified batleth felt reassuring in his hands. He looked around at his team, a mix of human drive and Klingon strength reflected in their eyes. Kalara's voice cut through the tense atmosphere. For the future of our people, for the honor of true Klingons everywhere, we fight. With a mighty war cry, the Sisterhood surged forward into the darkness, ready to challenge the very foundations of the Klingon Empire. The night air crackled with tension as the Sisterhood's forces moved swiftly through the shadows of the capital city. Harry's heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline coursing through his veins as they approached the imposing structure of the High Council building. As they neared their target, Kalara's voice crackled over their secure comm channel. "Change of plans. We've detected an active self-destruct sequence within the building. Harry, you and your team will need to handle both securing the council chambers and coordinating an evacuation." Harry's mind raced, quickly adapting to this new development. "Understood," he replied, signaling his team to fan out. "We'll secure the chambers first, then begin evacuation procedures." They breached the building's defenses with practiced efficiency, Harry's human agility complementing the raw strength of his Klingon comrades. As they fought their way through the corridors, Harry caught glimpses of Aurora's team working to disable the building's security systems. Upon reaching the council chambers, Harry's team swiftly overpowered the guards and secured the room. He turned to his second-in-command, a fierce Klingon warrior named Korg. "Begin evacuating the council members and any non-combatants. I'm going after Chancellor Koth." Korg nodded grimly, already moving to carry out the order. Harry tapped his comm device. "Aurora, what's the status on that self-destruct sequence?" Her voice came through, tense but focused. "Working on it. But Harry, there's a problem. The system is tied directly to Koth's personal command codes. We need him alive to stop the countdown." Harry's fists tight. "Copy that. I'm on my way to his location now. How much time do we have?" "Less than 15 minutes, Aurora replied. "Be careful, Harry." With a quick gesture, Harry assembled a small group of elite Sisterhood warriors. "With me," he ordered, leading them towards a hidden passage he remembered from the schematics they had stolen earlier. They encountered heavy resistance as they neared Koth's secret bunker. Harry's unique fighting style, blending human martial arts with Klingon battle techniques, proved devastatingly effective. He moved with fluid grace, ducking under a swinging bat'leth before using his opponent's momentum to throw them into a wall. As they fought their way forward, Harry's enhanced hearing picked up the sound of frantic movement ahead. They burst into a laboratory filled with strange equipment and vials of sickly-looking substances. The biological weapon prototypes, Harry realized, quickly gathering samples and downloading data from a nearby console. With precious minutes ticking away, they finally breached the bunker. Chancellor Koth stood by a concealed transporter pad, his face contorted with rage as he saw Harry and his team. "You," Koth snarled, drawing his own weapon. "You dare challenge the might of the Klingon Empire?" Harry stepped forward, his modified bat'leth at the ready. "Your empire deserves better than a leader who would commit genocide against his own people." With a roar, Koth charged. The two clashed in a furious exchange of blows, their weapons ringing out in the confined space of the bunker. Harry's agility allowed him to evade Koth's powerful strikes, countering with quick, precise attacks that slowly wore down the Chancellor's defenses. Realizing he was outmatched, Koth made a desperate lunge for the transporter controls. Harry saw his intention and leaped after him, grappling with the Chancellor just as the transporter engaged. The world dissolved into shimmering energy around them. When Harry's vision cleared, he found himself in an unfamiliar location, still locked in combat with Koth. The air was thin and cold, and harsh red light bathed the rocky landscape around them. They had materialized on some kind of remote outpost, far from the heart of the Empire. Back in the High Council building, Aurora's fingers flew over the control panel as she raced to disable the self-destruct sequence. Her heart sank as she lost contact with Harry's signal. For a moment she hesitated, torn between trying to trace his location and saving the lives of everyone still in the building. With only seconds to spare, Aurora made her choice. She redoubled her efforts on the self-destruct mechanism, her mind racing through complex algorithms and override sequences. At the last possible moment, the countdown froze, then winked out entirely. Aurora allowed herself a brief sigh of relief before turning her attention to the matter of Harry's disappearance. As she began analyzing the transporter logs, Kalara's voice came over the comm system, announcing their control of the High Council chambers and the broadcast of Koth's treachery to the entire Empire. "Aurora," Kalara said, her voice filled with both triumph and concern. "What's Harry's status?" "Unknown," Aurora replied, her fingers still moving across the console. "He and Koth were transported off-world. I'm working on pinpointing their location now." As the immediate crisis passed and the sisterhood began to secure their hard-won victory, Aurora's mind remained focused on one goal: finding Harry. The transporter logs revealed that he and Koth had been beamed to a remote Klingon outpost on the fringes of the Empire. Kalara, recognizing the importance of both capturing Koth and rescuing the human who had become so integral to their cause, quickly authorized a rescue mission. "Aurora, you'll lead the operation," she commanded. "Choose your team and prepare to depart immediately." As Aurora assembled a group of the Sisterhood's most skilled warriors, an encrypted transmission arrived on her personal device. The message contained detailed information about the outpost where Harry and Koth had been transported, including defense systems and patrol schedules. It ended with a cryptic note: "Your human ally is not alone. A friend awaits." Intrigued and cautiously optimistic, Aurora led her team to their cloaked ship. As they prepared for departure, she couldn't help but feel the weight of what lay ahead. The fate of Harry, the future of the Klingon Empire, and the success of their revolution all hung in the balance. The ship's engines hummed to life, and Aurora set course for the distant outpost. Her mind raced with questions and possibilities. Who was this mysterious ally? And what new challenges awaited them in their quest to rescue Harry and bring Chancellor Koth to justice? As the stars streaked past the viewscreen, Aurora steeled herself for the dangerous mission ahead. Whatever trials they might face, she was determined to bring Harry home and see their revolution through to its end. The journey to the remote outpost had only just begun, and the galaxy waited with suspenseful pause to see how this bold gambit would unfold. Aurora's fingers danced across the ship's controls, plotting a course through the treacherous expanse of space that separated them from Harry and Chancellor Koth. "Approaching the Grethor Nebula," she announced, her voice taut with focus, adjusting shields to compensate for increased radiation levels. The viewscreen flickered, revealing a vast, swirling cloud of crimson and violet gases. Aurora expertly guided their cloaked vessel through the nebula's outer fringes, using the dense matter to mask their approach from any Klingon patrols. As they emerged from the nebula's far side, a desolate world loomed before them. Its surface was a patchwork of rust-colored plains and jagged mountain ranges, with no signs of natural life visible from orbit. "That's it," Aurora confirmed, checking the coordinates against the information from the encrypted transmission. "The outpost should be located in the northern hemisphere, near the larger mountain range." She brought the ship in low, skimming the planet's thin atmosphere as they searched for signs of the facility. After several tense minutes, a glint of metal caught her eye. A series of structures nestled in a deep valley, their sharp angles a stark contrast to the natural terrain. Aurora set the ship down on a plateau overlooking the valley, engaging full stealth protocols to avoid detection. As her team prepared for the infiltration, she ran a final systems check on their equipment. "Remember," she addressed the assembled warriors, her voice filled with quiet intensity, "our primary objective is to locate and extract Harry, as well as securing Chancellor Koth. Any intelligence we can gather on this facility is secondary but potentially crucial to our cause." The team nodded in unison, their faces set with steadfast perseverance. They moved out under the cover of the planet's perpetual twilight, their adaptive camouflage blending seamlessly with the rocky terrain. As they approached the outpost perimeter, Aurora was struck by the eerie quiet. No guards patrolled the outer walls, and the few visible sensors appeared to be offline. "Something's not right," she murmured, signaling her team to halt. "This level of security is far too lax for a facility of this importance." Using her enhanced vision, Aurora scanned the complex, searching for any signs of life or activity. Her eyes narrowed as she spotted movement near one of the inner buildings. "There," she whispered, pointing out the location to her team. "A group of Klingons, but their movements are erratic, almost as if they're infected," one of her warriors finished, his voice grim. Aurora's mind raced, piecing together the implications. "We need to move fast. Whatever's happening in there, Harry and Koth are caught in the middle of it." They breached the outer defenses with ease, encountering no resistance as they made their way deeper into the complex. The dim corridors were eerily silent, broken only by the occasional distant sound of struggle or muffled cry. As they rounded a corner, Aurora's team came face to face with their first glimpse of the facility's occupants. A group of Klingon scientists huddled in a makeshift barricade, their eyes wide with fear, and their bodies showing signs of a strange, debilitating illness. One of the scientists, a female with lieutenant's insignia, raised a trembling hand. "Please," she croaked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Help us." Aurora approached cautiously, her weapon lowered but ready. "What happened here?" she demanded. The lieutenant's eyes darted nervously around the corridor before focusing on Aurora. "Genetic experiments," she rasped, "meant to create enhanced warriors loyal to the Empire. But something went wrong. The virus, it mutated." Aurora felt a chill run down her spine. "Where are the rest of the facility's personnel?" "Most are dead or turned," another scientist interjected, his face gaunt with exhaustion. "The few of us left have been trying to develop a cure, but we're running out of time and resources." Aurora's mind raced, connecting the dots between this new information and their mission objectives. "We're looking for 2 individuals who were recently transported here," she said urgently. "A human named Harry and Chancellor Koth. Have you seen them?" The lieutenant nodded weakly. "The human, he's with Dr. Kovex in the main laboratory. They're working on a counteragent. The Chancellor, he was taken to the high-security wing, but we lost contact with that section hours ago." Aurora quickly relayed the information to her team, formulating a new plan of action. "Korg, take half the team and secure these scientists. Get them to our ship and prepare for emergency decontamination protocols. The rest of you, with me. We're heading to the main lab." As they moved deeper into the facility, signs of the experiment's devastating effects became more pronounced. They passed rooms filled with medical equipment and ominous-looking genetic sequencers. In one laboratory, rows of stasis pods lined the walls, each containing a Klingon female in various stages of genetic alteration. Aurora felt a surge of anger and revulsion. This was exactly the kind of atrocity the Sisterhood had fought so hard against. The exploitation and manipulation of their people in the name of misguided notions of racial purity and military might. They reached the entrance to the main laboratory, the door sealed and showing signs of recent barricade attempts. Aurora signaled her team to take up defensive positions as she worked to bypass the security lock. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a scene of controlled chaos. Equipment hummed and beeped, holographic displays flickered with rapid streams of data, and in the center of it all stood Harry and a Klingon female Aurora assumed must be Dr. Kovex. Harry's head snapped up at their entrance, his eyes widening in recognition and relief. "Aurora!" he exclaimed, taking a step towards her before catching himself. "Wait, don't come any closer. We're not sure if we're carriers." Aurora nodded, understanding the precaution. "Harry, what's the situation here?" Harry's face was grim as he quickly filled them in on the facility's purpose and the catastrophic failure of their experiments. "Dr. Kovex has been working on a counteragent," he explained, gesturing to the Klingon scientist bent over a complex array of equipment. "We're close to a breakthrough, but we're running out of time." As if to emphasize his point, a distant explosion rocked the facility, causing dust to rain down from the ceiling. Harry's expression tightened. "That's the other problem. Koth managed to overpower his guards during the initial outbreak. He's holed up in the facility's control center, threatening to launch the cache of biological weapons stored here if we don't give him a working version of the counteragent." Aurora's mind raced, weighing their options. "How much longer do you need to finalize the counteragent?" she asked. Dr. Kovex looked up from her work, her face etched with exhaustion and commitment. "Perhaps an hour if we're fortunate, but Koth may not give us that long." Another explosion, closer this time, punctuated her words. Alarms began to blare throughout the facility, and a computerized voice announced the activation of launch protocols. Aurora made a split-second decision. "Harry, Dr. Kovex, continue your work here. My team will split up, half to secure this lab, half with me to stop Koth and prevent that launch." As Aurora turned to leave, Harry called out to her, "Aurora, wait!" Their eyes met, a silent communication passing between them, a mixture of concern, commitment, and something deeper that neither had time to fully acknowledge. "Be careful," Harry said simply. Aurora nodded, allowing herself a brief moment to take in his features before steeling herself for the task ahead. You too. We'll see this through, Harry. Together. With that, she led her team out of the lab and into the chaotic heart of the facility, racing against time to stop Chancellor Koth and prevent a catastrophe that could reshape the entire Klingon Empire. The tension in the air was palpable as Aurora and her team raced through the facility's winding corridors, the sound of distant explosions growing louder with each passing moment. As they approached the control center, Aurora signaled her team to take up flanking positions. She tapped her communicator, opening a channel to Harry in the lab. We're outside the control room. Any progress on the counteragent? Harry's voice crackled through, strained but determined. We're close, Aurora. Just need a few more minutes. How's the situation there? Volatile, Aurora replied, her eyes scanning the sealed entrance before her. We're about to breach. Be ready for anything. With a nod to her team, Aurora initiated the door's override sequence. The heavy metal barrier slid open with a hiss, revealing a scene of chaos within. Chancellor Koth stood at the center of the room, his imposing figure hunched over a control panel. His eyes, wild with desperation, snapped up to meet Aurora's. Stay back, Koth bellowed, his hand hovering over a large red button. One more step and I'll launch every weapon in this facility's arsenal. Aurora held up her hands, taking a cautious step forward. Chancellor, it's over. The Empire knows what you've done. Surrender now, and we can end this without further bloodshed. Koth's laughter was harsh and bitter. Surrender? To you? To the Federation? Never. I'd rather see the Empire burn than fall into the hands of weaklings and alien sympathizers. As Aurora prepared to respond, her communicator chirped urgently. Harry's voice came through, breathless with excitement. We've done it! The counteragent is ready! In that moment of distraction, Koth lunged for the launch controls. Aurora reacted instantly, her body moving with lightning speed. She tackled the Chancellor, their bodies colliding with bone-jarring force. They grappled on the ground, a furious tangle of limbs and snarling faces. With a surge of strength, Aurora pinned Koth to the floor, her team rushing in to secure him. As the Chancellor was restrained, Aurora rose to her feet, her chest heaving with exertion. It's finished, Koth, she said, her voice firm. Your coup has failed. The Empire will know the truth. Hours later, as their ship broke Kronos' atmosphere, Aurora stood on the bridge, watching her homeworld grow larger in the view screen. The facility had been secured, its deadly arsenal neutralized. Chancellor Koth and his conspirators were in custody, their fate to be decided by a newly convened High Council. Harry joined her at the view screen, his presence a comforting warmth at her side. We did it, he said softly, his eyes reflecting the swirling storms of Kronos' upper atmosphere. Aurora nodded, allowing herself a small smile. We did, but this is just the beginning. As their ship descended towards the capital city, Aurora could see crowds gathering in the streets below. News of Koth's capture and the thwarted coup had spread like wildfire across the Empire. The Sisterhood's victory had catalyzed a seismic shift in Klingon politics, one that would reshape their society for generations to come. The ship touched down on the landing pad of the High Council chambers. As the ramp lowered, Aurora and Harry were met with a cacophony of voices and a sea of faces. Klingons of all ranks and stations gathered to witness this historic moment. Kalara strode forward, her presence commanding instant respect from the assembled crowd. Sisters, brothers, she called out, her voice carrying across the plaza. Today marks a new era for the Klingon Empire. The High Council has called an emergency session to address the crimes of Chancellor Koth and to chart a new course for our people. As they made their way through the throng, Aurora caught snippets of conversation, a mix of excitement and trepidation rippling through the crowd. Some spoke of revolution, others of tradition. The air was electric with possibility. Inside the council chambers, Aurora and Harry took their places alongside Kalara and Dr. Kovex. The room was packed, with every seat filled, and more Klingons standing along the walls. As the session began, Aurora felt the weight of history pressing down upon them all. One by one, they presented their evidence. Dr. Kvex's testimony on the biological weapon sent shockwaves through the assembly. Harry spoke of his experiences, his outsider's perspective lending weight to their arguments. When it was Aurora's turn, she stood tall, her voice ringing out clear and strong as she recounted the conspiracy they had uncovered. As the final pieces of evidence were presented, a hush fell over the chamber. The council members conferred in hushed tones, their faces grave. Finally, the eldest among them rose to speak. "In light of these revelations," he announced, his voice quavering with age and emotion, "the High Council hereby votes to immediately halt all development of biological weapons and to begin the process of dismantling the outdated structures that have held our society back for too long." A roar of approval shook the chamber, but Aurora knew their work was nowhere near the end. As the council session adjourned, she found herself swept up in a whirlwind of activity. There were congratulations to receive, plans to be made, and a new order to establish. Amidst the chaos, Harry caught her eye from across the room. His expression was a mix of pride, admiration, and something deeper, something that made Aurora's heart race in a way no battle ever had. But before she could reach him, she was pulled away by a group of newly emboldened female warriors, eager to discuss the future of the sisterhood. As night fell on Kronos, Aurora stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city, her mind turning from the day's events. The sound of footsteps behind her made her turn, and she found herself face to face with Harry. "Quite a day," he said, moving to stand beside her. Aurora nodded, her gaze returning to the city below. "It's only the beginning. The real work starts now." Harry was silent for a moment, then spoke softly. "I've been offered a position here, as a liaison between Earth and Kronos." Aurora's heart skipped a beat, but she kept her voice steady. "And will you accept?" Before Harry could answer, an aide burst onto the balcony, his face pale with urgency. "Lady Aurora, we've received reports of unrest in the outer provinces. A group of traditionalists is rallying support against the new reforms." Aurora straightened, her warrior's instincts kicking in. She turned to Harry, their unfinished conversation hanging in the air between them. "We'll continue this later," she said, already moving towards the door. As she strode back into the council chambers, Aurora could feel the winds of change swirling around her. The Klingon Empire stood at a crossroads, and she knew that the decisions made in the coming days would shape the future of not just her people, but potentially the entire galaxy. With a deep breath, she plunged back into the fray, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The revolution had only just begun, and Aurora was determined to see it through to the end. The revolution had only just begun, and Aurora was determined to see it through to the end. Little did she know that the challenges ahead would test her determination and leadership like never before. As Aurora strode into the council chambers, the air crackled with tension. Reports of unrest in the outer provinces dominated the discussion, with councillors arguing fiercely about how to respond. Suddenly, an aide burst into the room, his face pale with urgency. "My lords, we've received intelligence of a plot to sabotage the upcoming diplomatic meeting with the Federation representatives," he announced, his voice trembling. The chamber erupted into chaos. Aurora locked eyes with Harry across the room, a silent understanding passing between them. They needed to act fast. "We must secure the meeting location immediately," Aurora declared, her voice cutting through the clamor. "Harry, assemble a team. We'll coordinate with the Federation security detail." As they raced to implement their plan, Aurora felt a surge of pride in the efficiency of her newly formed task force. The reforms she had pushed for were already bearing fruit, with male and female Klingons working seamlessly together. The diplomatic meeting was set to take place in an ancient fortress on the outskirts of the capital. As Aurora and Harry approached, they could see the Federation shuttle touching down. Time was running out. "The traditionalists will likely target the power systems," Harry said as they hurried through the fortress corridors. "If they can cut communications and security, they'll have a chance to strike." Aurora nodded, her mind racing. "We'll split up. You take the team to secure the main power core. I'll sweep the perimeter." As they separated, Aurora felt a familiar rush of adrenaline. This was what she was born for: action, decisive moments that could shape the future of her people. She moved silently through the shadows of the fortress, her senses on high alert. A flicker of movement caught her eye, and she spun, coming face to face with a group of masked figures attempting to plant explosive devices. Without hesitation, Aurora launched into action. Her fists and feet became a blur as she engaged the saboteurs. The sound of phaser fire echoed through the ancient stone walls as her team joined the fray. In the midst of the chaos, Aurora's communicator crackled to life. "Aurora!" Harry's voice came through, strained with exertion. "We've secured the power core, but they're making a push for the main conference room. We need backup." "On my way," Aurora responded, dispatching the last of her opponents with a well-placed strike. She raced through the winding corridors, her heart pounding in her ears. As she burst into the conference room, she saw Harry grappling with a massive Klingon warrior. Federation and Klingon diplomats huddled in the corner, their faces a mix of fear and awe. Aurora didn't hesitate. She leaped into the fray, her body moving in perfect synchronization with Harry's. Together, they subdued the attacker, their movements a deadly dance of precision and power. As the dust settled, Aurora surveyed the room. The plot had been foiled, the diplomats were safe, and the meeting could proceed. She caught Harry's eye, and they shared a moment of triumph. In the days that followed, the repercussions of their success reverberated throughout the Empire. The Federation peacekeeping force, recognizing the stability of the new Klingon government, began their withdrawal. Aurora and Harry found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of accolades and new responsibilities. The High Council chamber was packed as Chancellor Kalara rose to speak. "Today, we honor two individuals who have proven themselves true warriors in the service of our new Klingon society," she announced, her voice ringing with pride. Aurora stood tall as Kalara continued. "Aurora, daughter of Katara, you are hereby promoted to lead a new joint task force. Your mission, to root out any remaining cells of the traditionalist faction and ensure the security of our reformed empire." The chamber erupted in cheers, and Aurora felt a surge of emotion. This was a position of power unprecedented for a female in Klingon history. Kalara turned to Harry, her expression solemn. "Harry Kim of Earth, you have fought with the heart of a true Klingon warrior. It is the decision of this council to offer you a position within the Klingon Defense Force, the first human to ever serve in our ranks." A hush fell over the chamber as all eyes turned to Harry. Aurora watched him intently, seeing the conflict play out on his face. This was more than just a job offer. It was a chance to bridge two worlds, to be part of something truly revolutionary. As Harry stepped forward to accept, Aurora felt a complex mix of emotions. Pride in his accomplishments, excitement for the future they were building, and an undeniable pull towards him that grew stronger with each passing day. The political landscape of Kronos continued to shift rapidly. Kalara, emboldened by the Sisterhood's growing influence, pushed for sweeping reforms in Klingon law and social structures. Aurora found herself at the forefront of these changes, advocating for equality and merit-based advancement throughout Klingon society. However, not everyone embraced the pace of change. A group of moderate males formed a new political party, calling for a more gradual approach to social transformation. Tensions began to simmer within the High Council as debates grew heated and factions formed. Amidst the political turmoil, Aurora and Harry found themselves thrust into the spotlight. Their partnership became a symbol of the new Klingon-human alliance, with many viewing their relationship as a model for the future. The public scrutiny was intense, and Aurora felt the weight of expectations pressing down on her. One evening, as they worked late in Aurora's office, Harry broached the subject that had been hanging between them. "Aurora," he began, his voice hesitant, "I can't help but feel there's something more between us than just professional respect." Aurora met his gaze, her heart racing. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, her communicator chirped urgently. "Lady Aurora," came the voice of her aide, "we've received a priority message from Dr. Kavex. She says it's urgent. Something about her research having unexpected side effects." Aurora and Harry exchanged a look of concern. Whatever was happening with Dr. Kavex's research, they knew it had the potential to upend the fragile peace they had worked so hard to establish. "We're on our way," Aurora responded, already moving towards the door. As they hurried through the corridors of the High Council building, she could feel the familiar tension of a new crisis building. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Aurora knew that with Harry by her side, they would face them head-on. Together. As they approached Dr. Kivex's lab, Aurora couldn't shake the feeling that whatever awaited them would change everything. The door slid open, revealing a frantic Dr. Kivex surrounded by holographic displays and pulsing bio-readings. Her eyes widened as she saw Aurora and Harry enter. "Thank the gods you're here," she exclaimed, her voice trembling. "We've made a discovery that could rewrite Klingon history." Before she could elaborate, an urgent message flashed across the main screen. Chancellor Kalara's face appeared, her expression grave. "Aurora, Harry, we need you immediately. An ancient Klingon outpost has been discovered on an uninhabited planet in the Gamma Quadrant. The data we've received, it's unlike anything we've seen before." Within hours, Aurora and Harry found themselves aboard a Klingon bird of prey, racing towards the coordinates provided by Kalara. The journey was tense, filled with speculation about what they might find. As they approached the planet, sensors detected faint energy signatures emanating from the surface. Aurora felt a shiver of anticipation run down her spine as they began their descent. The landing party, led by Aurora and Harry, made their way through dense alien vegetation. Ancient stone structures loomed before them, covered in vines and weathered by millennia of neglect. As they entered the main chamber, holographic displays flickered to life, bathing the room in an eerie blue glow. Aurora's breath caught in her throat as she saw the images before her. Klingons of various builds and appearances, some with ridged foreheads, others smooth like humans. "By Kalis?" she whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. Harry moved to a nearby console, his fingers flying over the alien interface. "Aurora, look at this!" he called out, his voice filled with excitement and trepidation. "These records, they show a history of genetic modification spanning thousands of years." As they delved deeper into the ancient database, the true scope of their discovery began to emerge. The Klingons had a long history of genetic diversity and modification, adapting to different environments and challenges throughout their expansion across the stars. Chancellor Kalara, who had accompanied the expedition, stepped forward, her face a mask of shock and awe. "This changes everything," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Our entire understanding of Klingon history, it's been based on incomplete information." As the team worked to download and secure the priceless data, Aurora felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. She steadied herself against a nearby pillar, trying to shake off the sudden fatigue. Harry was at her side in an instant, concern etched on his face. "Are you all right?" he asked, his hand on her arm. Before Aurora could respond, the ground beneath them began to shake. Dust and debris rained down from the ancient ceiling as the tremors intensified. "We need to get out of here now," Kalara shouted over the rumbling. "The planet's unstable. Our presence must have triggered some kind of seismic activity." As they raced back to the ship, Aurora's mind whirled with the implications of their discovery. The genetic diversity they had uncovered could potentially validate Dr. Kivex's research and quell the fears about genetic modification that had been dividing Klingon society. The bird of prey lifted off just as massive fissures began to split the ground where they had stood moments before. As they broke atmosphere, Aurora looked back at the planet, watching as the ancient outpost was swallowed by the convulsing landscape. The journey back to Kronos was filled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The team pored over the data they had retrieved, each new revelation adding to the weight of their discovery. As they approached Klingon space, long-range sensors picked up unusual activity. Kalara's face darkened as she read the incoming reports. "Protests have broken out in major cities across Kronos," she announced, her voice tight with concern. "The revelation about genetic modification has sparked a fierce debate. Some see it as a validation of our adaptability, others as a threat to Klingon purity." Aurora and Harry exchanged worried glances. They knew that the information they carried had the power to reshape Klingon society, but they hadn't anticipated such an immediate and volatile reaction. As their ship entered orbit around Kronos, they could see the signs of unrest even from space. Flashes of light from the cities, the movement of emergency vehicles, and the ominous presence of military ships maintaining order. "Prepare for immediate transport to the High Council chambers," Kalara ordered, her teeth clenched. We must present our findings before this situation spirals out of control. As the transporter beam engulfed them, Aurora felt Harry's hand slip into hers. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The fate of the Klingon Empire, and perhaps the entire quadrant, hung in the balance. Balance they held in their hands. As they materialized in the High Council chambers, Aurora and Harry were immediately struck by the tense atmosphere. The room was packed with Klingon leaders, their faces a mix of anger, fear, and anticipation. Chancellor Kalara strode to the center of the room, her presence commanding immediate attention. Esteemed members of the High Council, she began, her voice steady despite the palpable tension. We stand at a crossroads in our history. The discoveries made on the ancient outpost have shaken the very foundations of our beliefs about Klingon identity. As Kalara spoke, Aurora felt a wave of nausea wash over her. She gripped Harry's hand tighter, trying to focus on the Chancellor's words. Harry glanced at her with concern but remained silent, knowing the importance of this moment. Kalara continued, outlining the implications of their findings and the need for unity in the face of this paradigm shift. As she spoke, the room erupted into heated debates, with various factions arguing for different courses of action. Amidst the chaos, Aurora stepped forward, her voice cutting through the din. Brothers and sisters, she called out, her words silencing the room. This discovery does not diminish our strength or our honor. It shows that adaptability and diversity have always been part of our heritage. Her impassioned speech seemed to resonate with many in the room, but the tension remained palpable. As the debates raged on, reports of growing unrest in the streets continued to pour in. Suddenly, an aide burst into the chamber, his face pale with urgency. "Chancellor," he gasped, "we've received intelligence of an imminent attack on the public ceremony planned for tomorrow. Extremists opposed to the reforms are planning to strike during the event." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Kalara turned to Aurora and Harry, her expression grim. "We cannot cancel the ceremony," she said firmly. "It would be seen as a sign of weakness. We need a plan to ensure the safety of all attendees while sending a clear message that we will not be intimidated." Without hesitation, Harry stepped forward. "Chancellor, if I may," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "I believe we can turn this threat into an opportunity to showcase the strength of our new, unified Klingon society." Over the next few hours, Harry and Aurora worked tirelessly with Kalara and the Klingon Defense Force to devise a comprehensive security plan. They implemented advanced surveillance techniques borrowed from Starfleet, combined with the fierce willpower and strength of Klingon warriors. As dawn broke on the day of the ceremony, Aurora stood before a mirror, adjusting her ceremonial armor. Her hand unconsciously moved to her stomach, where a small but noticeable swell had begun to form. The realization of her pregnancy had come as a shock, but now it filled her with a sense of purpose and hope for the future. Harry entered the room, his human Starfleet uniform, a stark contrast to the Klingon attire surrounding them. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice a mix of concern and perseverance. Aurora nodded, her eyes meeting his in the mirror. "Together," she said simply, taking his hand as they made their way to the ceremony grounds. The air was thick with tension as they took their positions. Aurora's keen eyes scanned the crowd, noting the strategic placement of their security forces. Harry stood tall beside her, a living symbol of the cooperation between humans and Klingons. As Kalara began her address, Aurora felt a familiar tingling sensation, the heightened awareness that preceded combat. Her hand instinctively moved to the concealed weapon at her side. Suddenly, a commotion erupted near the outer perimeter. Aurora's communicator crackled to life with urgent reports of suspicious activity. Without a word, she and Harry sprang into action, their movements synchronized after months of working side by side. Harry coordinated with the security teams, his voice calm and authoritative as he directed a silent takedown of several infiltrators. Aurora, her combat skills unhampered by her condition, moved swiftly through the crowd, her senses on high alert. As she rounded a corner, she came face to face with a hooded figure clutching a strange device. Recognition flashed in Aurora's mind. This was the leader of the extremist group, poised to activate a weapon that could devastate the ceremony. In a blur of motion, Aurora closed the distance between them. Her pregnancy had only sharpened her instincts, lending her movements a fierce, protective quality. With a series of precise strikes, she disarmed the attacker and pinned him to the ground, the weapon clattering harmlessly aside. As the dust settled, the foiled assassination attempt became public knowledge. The swift and effective response by Aurora, Harry, and their integrated security force served as a powerful demonstration of the strength of their new, unified society. In the days that followed, the political landscape of Kronos continued to evolve rapidly. Dr. Kivex made a groundbreaking announcement about her ability to stabilize the genetic modifications, opening up new possibilities for all Klingons. As Aurora and Harry stood before the High Council once again, they felt the weight of change settling around them. The compromise proposed by the moderate male faction was formally adopted, ushering in a new era of balanced representation and protected rights for all Klingons. Yet even as they celebrated these political victories, Aurora and Harry faced a more personal challenge. Aurora's pregnancy was progressing at an unprecedented rate, the unique hybrid nature of their child presenting unforeseen complications. As they left the council chambers, hand in hand, Aurora felt a sudden sharp pain. She stumbled, gripping Harry's arm for support. "Aurora!" Harry's voice was filled with concern as he steadied her. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with a mix of excitement and fear. "Harry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I think it's time." Before Harry could respond, a series of urgent beeps emanated from their communicators. On the small screen, a warning flashed. An unknown object was approaching Klingon space at high speed. Aurora and Harry exchanged a look of tenacity. Once again, they found themselves at the crossroads of personal joy and potential crisis. As they hurried towards the medical bay, they knew that the challenges ahead would test not only their love and commitment, but also the very foundations of the new society they had helped to build. Forge. As they hurried towards the medical bay, they knew that the challenges ahead would test not only their love and commitment, but also the very foundations of the new society they had helped to build. The corridors of the Klingon Defense Force headquarters bustled with activity as Harry and Aurora made their way to the command center. Despite the pain racking her body, Aurora's face remained a mask of perseverance. They burst into the room, greeted by the sight of Kalara hunched over a tactical display. "Report," Harry demanded, his arm supporting Aurora. Kalara's eyes darted between the couple and the holographic projection. "An unknown object has entered our space at high warp. It's massive, unlike anything we've encountered before." As if on cue, Aurora doubled over, a sharp cry escaping her lips. Harry's grip tightened, his eyes wide with concern. "We need to get you to medical," he urged, but Aurora shook her head. "No," she gritted out. "We need to handle this first. The Empire—" Her words were cut short as another contraction hit. Kalara stepped forward, her expression softening. "Your child is coming, Aurora. The Empire will stand, but this moment, it will not wait." With a nod from Kalara, two Klingon warriors stepped forward to assist. As they helped Aurora towards the medical bay, Harry turned to Kalara. "Keep me updated on the situation. I'll return as soon as I can." The medical facility was a flurry of activity when they arrived. Dr. Kvex, flanked by a team of human and Klingon doctors, rushed to meet them. "We've been expecting you," Kvex said, her voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. "We're prepared for any complications that may arise from the hybrid nature of the child." As Aurora was settled onto a biobed, alarms blared throughout the facility. Harry's communicator chirped insistently. "The object has entered the Kronos system." Kalara's voice crackled through the device. "We're detecting extensive scanning of the planet's surface." Harry's teeth clenched, torn between his duty and his desire to stay with Aurora. She reached out, grasping his hand. "Go," she said, her voice strained but firm. "They need you. I'll be fine." With a quick kiss to her forehead, Harry reluctantly left the medical bay. As he raced back to the command center, he could hear the growing commotion outside. News of Aurora's labor had spread rapidly, and Klingons from all walks of life were gathering, their curiosity palpable. Back in the command center, Harry found Kalara coordinating with the Klingon Defense Force. "The High Council has convened an emergency session," she informed him. "We need to be prepared for any eventuality." As they worked tirelessly to analyze the approaching object and prepare defensive strategies, Harry's thoughts kept drifting back to Aurora. Hours passed in a blur of tactical discussions and contingency planning. Suddenly, the command center's main screen flickered to life. The image of a massive ship, unlike any they had ever seen, filled the display. Its design seemed to blend elements of Klingon architecture with something entirely alien. Before anyone could react, a message broadcast across all frequencies. The language was Klingon, but the dialect was ancient, almost unrecognizable. Kalara's eyes widened as she translated. "They claim to be descendants of a lost Klingon colony," she said, her voice filled with disbelief. "They say they've returned to their ancestral home after centuries of isolation." The room erupted into chaos as the implications sank in. Harry's mind raced, considering the potential impact on the already fragile political situation on Kronos. His communicator chirped, and Dr. Kvex's voice came through, filled with excitement. "It's a girl, Harry, a healthy hybrid child. You need to come quickly." Harry's heart soared at the news, even as the weight of the current crisis pressed down on him. He turned to Kalara, who nodded in understanding. "Go," she said. "We'll continue to monitor the situation. But Harry," she added, her eyes intense, "we may need you both sooner than you think." As Harry rushed back to the medical facility, his mind whirled with the possibilities and challenges that lay ahead. The birth of his daughter, the arrival of these long-lost Klingons, it all seemed too monumental to process. He entered the medical bay to find Aurora cradling a small bundle, her face glowing despite her exhaustion. As he approached, she looked up, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "Meet your daughter, Harry," she said softly, tilting the bundle towards him. Harry gazed down at the tiny face, his breath catching in his throat. The child's forehead ridges were softer than a full Klingon's, but undeniably present. Her eyes, when they fluttered open, were a striking mix of human and Klingon features. "She's perfect," he whispered, gently taking the child in his arms. "What shall we call her?" Aurora smiled. "I was thinking Kalira, in honor of Kalara, and to bridge our two cultures." As Harry nodded in agreement, Dr. Kvex approached, her face a mix of excitement and concern. "I've made some preliminary scans of Kalira," she began, her voice low. "Her hybrid genetics show signs of enhanced capabilities beyond what we'd expect from either human or Klingon norms." Before they could discuss further, alarms blared once again. Kalara's voice came through the facility's communication system. "The ship has entered orbit. They're requesting to send down a delegation. We need you both, now." Harry and Aurora exchanged a look, the weight of their responsibilities settling on them once more. As they prepared to face this new challenge, they held Kalira close, drawing strength from each other and their newborn daughter. The future of Kronos, and perhaps the entire Alpha Quadrant, hung in the balance. But in that moment, cradling their child and standing united, Harry and Aurora felt ready to face whatever came next. The corridors of the Klingon Defense Force headquarters buzzed with anticipation as Harry and Aurora made their way to the shuttle bay. Kalira, nestled securely in Aurora's arms, cooed softly, oblivious to the monumental events unfolding around her. As they boarded the shuttle, Harry couldn't help but marvel at the rapid turn of events. Just hours ago, he had been torn between his duties and the birth of his child. Now, here they were, embarking on a historic first contact mission with long-lost Klingons. The shuttle hummed to life, lifting off smoothly from the launch pad. Through the view screen, Harry watched as the massive ship of the returning Klingons grew larger, its unique design a testament to centuries of isolated development. "Are you ready for this?" Harry asked, glancing at Aurora. She nodded, her eyes gleaming with a mix of excitement and persistence. "As ready as we'll ever be." The shuttle docked with a gentle thud, and the airlock hissed open. Harry and Aurora exchanged a final look before stepping into the unknown. They were greeted by a group of Klingons whose features, while unmistakably Klingon, bore subtle differences from those they were accustomed to seeing on Kronos. Their foreheads' ridges were less pronounced, and their builds were slightly leaner, adaptations to whatever world they had called home for centuries. A tall, distinguished Klingon stepped forward, his bearing regal and confident. "I am Kavorath," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "On behalf of our people, I welcome you aboard." Harry inclined his head respectfully. "I am Harry Kim, and this is Aurora. We represent the new unified government of Kronos." Kavorath's eyes widened slightly as he took in Aurora's appearance and the small bundle in her arms. "A human and a Klingon? United?" he murmured, his tone a mix of surprise and curiosity. Aurora stepped forward, her chin held high. "Yes, our union symbolizes the new era of cooperation between our peoples." Kavorath's gaze settled on Kalira, and his expression softened. "And this is your child?" Harry nodded, pride evident in his voice. "Yes, our daughter Kalira. She was born just hours ago." A hush fell over the assembled Klingons as Kavorath approached, his eyes never leaving the infant. "In our colony," he began, his voice taking on a reverent quality, "we developed a custom of greeting newborns. We believe that touching their chest, feeling their heartbeat, forges a connection between our people and the new life." He looked up at Harry and Aurora, his expression open and earnest. "With your permission, I would like to perform this ritual. It would be a powerful symbol of the connection between our two peoples." Harry and Aurora exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. They understood the weight of this moment, the potential it held for fostering goodwill and understanding. "We would be honored," Aurora said, carefully adjusting Kalira in her arms. Kavorath stepped closer, gently placing his hand on Kalira's chest. The baby gurgled happily, her tiny hand reaching up to grasp Kavorath's finger. The Klingon diplomat's eyes widened in wonder, a smile breaking across his face. "She is strong," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "A true child of two worlds." The tension in the room dissipated, replaced by a sense of shared wonder and hope. Kavorath turned to address his people, his voice ringing with enthusiasm. "My friends, this child represents the future we never dared to imagine. A future where Klingons and humans stand side by side, united in strength and purpose." He turned back to Harry and Aurora, his expression earnest. "Tell us of the changes on Kronos. How did this come to be?" As Harry and Aurora began to recount the recent upheavals and reforms on their homeworld, the returning Klingons listened with rapt attention. They shared stories of their own technological advancements and unique cultural practices developed during their long isolation. The conversation flowed freely, punctuated by exclamations of surprise and nods of understanding. As they talked, it became clear that both sides had much to offer each other. Suddenly, Harry's communicator chirped. Dr. Kavex's excited voice filled the air. "Harry, Aurora, I have incredible news. My latest tests on Kalira show that her unique genetic makeup could be the key to resolving the lingering issues with the genetic modifications affecting some Klingons." The room fell silent as the implications of this revelation sank in. Kavorath was the first to speak, his voice filled with awe. "It seems the fates have brought us together at the perfect moment," he said. "Your child may hold the key to healing the wounds of the past and securing a bright future for all Klingons." He straightened, his decision made. "I propose a formal alliance between our colony and the new Klingon government. Together, we can build a stronger, more unified Klingon empire." The Klingon officials present readily agreed, their voices rising in a chorus of approval. As discussions of integration and cooperation began in earnest, Harry and Aurora shared a quiet moment amidst the excitement. "Who would have thought," Harry mused, gazing down at Kalira, "that our daughter would play such a crucial role in shaping the future of an entire civilization?" Aurora smiled, leaning into him. "She's special, just like her father," she said softly. As they prepared to return to Kronos with their new allies, Harry and Aurora felt a sense of anticipation. The path ahead was uncharted, filled with challenges and opportunities they could scarcely imagine. But with Kalira in their arms and their new friends by their side, they were ready to face whatever the future might bring.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.